Hello, and welcome to our next presentation. On behalf of the MIT CDOIQ Virtual Symposium, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors who have continued to support the symposium during this very challenging year. Before we thank our partners, we'd like to ask that sometime during the symposium's breaks that you visit our partners' virtual booths. You can also visit the Content Hub on the MIT CDOIQ website for some great partner resources. We'd like to thank the following partners: Deloitte, Informatica, Privacy and Analytics, DAWEX, Fusion Alliance, KPMG, Sandal Consultants, Tamer, Elation, AlyData, Big ID, Boomi, Caserta, Citizen, Data Kitchen, Garage, Wakira, Pylog, Click, ThoughtSpot, Eckerson, Global IDs, Snowflake, Starburst. And as I said, please make every effort to visit our partners, use the virtual passport, because without them and our partner support, the symposium could not be held. Thank you.
My mute on. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our last session for the day. And very excited to have friend and colleague Zaidi and his friend and colleague Keyur Desai, who are going to talk to us about corporate data and analytics strategy around this. Now, we've got this, I think, pretty tightly typed, but do you guys want questions as they come through, and I can toss them in the chat for you, or do you want to wait till the end? What's your preference?
I think Peter, would be better if you can wait for the end.
It's all yours.
Let's see, let us flow, and then we can always address all the questions, or as many as we can at the end.
We look forward to your presentation, Jay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to start my video momentarily just to introduce myself, and then I'm going to turn it off because of bandwidth issues. So thank you everyone for attending our presentation. And the topic that we're going to discuss today is co-created corporate data and analytics strategy. My co-presenter, Keyur Desai, is the ex-CDO of TDAmeritrade, very experienced data practitioner. So he and I will discuss the topic, and then we will take your questions at the end. So without further ado, let us get started. Peter, do I have control? Okay, there you go. So before we get started, let me share what you will take away from this presentation. We will discuss three specific topics. The first one is about what the primary components of a good data and analytics strategy are. The second topic that we will discuss is what does a framework for a corporate data and analytics strategy contain? What are the major components? And then finally, we have developed a methodology that you can use to execute on that strategy. So those are the three key takeaways for you, and hopefully you will walk away with some good information at the end of the session, and we look forward to having additional conversations afterwards. So just a little bit of background. Keyur, my co-presenter, is a highly experienced and successful CDO who started journey at MicroStrategy as one of the founding members. Over the years, his career has taken him to various services and product firms, including a stint in venture capital investing. He's also on the board of advisors of Springbuck and Families Without Border. A key theme throughout Keyur's professional journey is a focus on maximizing the impact of data, analytics, and data products on business results, operational efficiency, enterprise risk, and innovation. I'm a data practitioner. I founded my firm, AlyData, in 2014 to help organizations unleash the power of the data assets through better management, quality, privacy, and governance. AlyData provides CDO advisory services coupled with strategy and execution services related to data management and analytics. In the last 6 years, we have helped and supported multiple mid-size and large organizations successfully deliver upon their data management and data strategy initiatives. A fun fact about me in 2016, I authored 2 books on data-driven leadership that are available on Amazon, and a great experience doing that. So before we get started, I had 3 polling questions that I would like to pose to you that would show up in Slido, I believe, Peter. Hey, Peter, are you there?
He had to step away, but he's going to aggregate he will be back in a few minutes, but he had to,
Okay.
he will aggregate the questions for you.
Okay, how does the polling work? I wanted to make sure that the audience has access to the poll.
On my screen, it's at the very bottom in the menu.
Okay, is that accessible to the audience?
I think they have to do that through Slido.
So audience members, if you could,
which is on the
scroll
webcast.
down, I guess. Yes.
When the questions come in, I'll pass them to you guys via the chat.
Okay. Now, we were running a poll. We had 3 questions, Peter, that we wanted to poll the audience for before we get started.
Gosh, let's take a look here and see if they loaded it for me. No, unfortunately. I'll have to contact Gertrude on that one, guys, but they didn't set that one up.
Okay,
Yeah.
no worries. Okay, no worries. We'll keep moving. All right. So just a little bit of backstory before I turn it over to Keyur. So we, over the years, have observed that organizations struggle to develop a good data and analytics strategy that enables business success. So my firm, AlyData, enabled TDAmeritrade to develop a data and analytics strategy a couple of years back to drive superior business outcomes. And through that engagement and other client engagements, we've now developed a generic framework that we use to enable other companies to benefit from this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Keyur, and he's going to walk you through the components of the data strategy, the framework, and provide his thoughts on his experiences. Keyur?
All right, great. Thank you, Jay, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody listening in. Happy to be speaking with you here today. So as Jay said, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start off by talking about what constitutes a great data and analytics strategy. And I thought a good starting point, just given that the phrase data and analytics strategy means different things to different people, I thought it made sense for us to align around really what that term would mean in the context of this discussion. And so with that, Jay, if you'd present the next slide, please. Okay, with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about a concept. It's not on the slide, so don't be looking at the slides, but I ask that you maybe imagine a little bit and come along with me here. So we all embrace the notion that data and analytics on top of this data has the ability to affect business outcomes, okay? But sitting between this data as well as the analytics and the business outcomes is a set of data initiatives and a set of analytics initiatives. And these initiatives are simply the application of the data as well as the analytics grounded by some appropriate technology in order to create that business outcome. Now, with that picture in your mind, that picture actually begs a few questions, and 4 questions specifically. The first being, what specific data initiatives and analytics initiatives need to be created in order to achieve the desired business outcomes? Second question is, what should our technology architecture be, and how does it enable our business outcomes? Third question is, what are the right sequence of data initiatives and analytics initiatives to be able to deliver the desired sequence of business outcomes? And last question, and in many cases the most important question, is how does the cost of our data and analytics systems relate to the benefits to our business? So A data and analytics strategy or a comprehensive data analytics strategy answers these questions. And in so doing, we then connect business outcomes with data initiatives as well as analytics initiatives needed to achieve these outcomes. But there are two attributes of a data strategy that are important to know and embrace. The first attribute is, given the connection we spoke of earlier between data and analytics and its ability to affect business outcomes, it should follow that the data strategy must be co-created by the business and data analytics teams jointly. And secondly, since the business needs as well as their goals are continually evolving, it's important to know that the data and analytics strategy similarly needs to continue to evolve. And what this means is that the data analytics teams, as well as the business teams, need to come together on a regular basis to ensure that the connections between the desired business outcomes and the data analytics initiatives are always aligned and accretive to the value of the firm, right? Business strategy changes quite often. If we don't keep pace on the data analytics side, then we may not be realizing the outcomes that we originally set out to achieve. And so from all of this, what follows is that a comprehensive data analytics strategy needs to contain answers to these 4 questions. And what that means is that as part of that physical document, you really need to have a couple items. And those items are reflected on this slide right here. The first item all the way to the left is a prioritized listing of specific and ideally quantified business outcomes that are being addressed. An example of specificity being something like, increase revenue by 5%. And now for each of these business outcomes that are defined here, we need to have the data and analytics challenges, an example of which are, need access to current and trusted customer demographic data, or perhaps the inability of business users to formulate insights in a timely fashion. From that, we can decompose things into a prioritized target state data analytics solution, as well as a current state environment. Both are then, the current and target state are then used to determine the gaps needed to be surmounted to reach the target. Item 4, which is this right here, we need to be able to define the policies, coherent actions, and guiding principles, as well as, from the gaps, decompose the prioritized roadmap of data initiatives and analytics initiatives, as well as accompanying business initiatives to reach the target state. I'm going to talk more about all of that on the next slide. The last piece we need is a value analysis to be able to determine the anticipated value against anticipated costs. And this analysis really becomes the basis by which multiple initiatives can effectively be prioritized without the typical prioritization being, whoever screams the loudest. So next slide, please. If you just, another click. Yeah, there we go. So in order to understand the gaps between current state and target state, we need a framework of sorts, if you will, to help us determine the appropriate components and actions that we need to introspect, followed by the ability to then determine the cost, tangible benefits that the organization will accrue. And so given that data and analytics have the ability to affect business outcomes, like we spoke about earlier, it's important when forming a data analytics strategy to know what the sea of all currently possible types of business outcomes that are, that are possible with data analytics, what they are. And we've listed this sea of possible outcomes right here on this slide. We've got process optimization based outcomes. We've got human capability based outcomes. We've got the outcome of putting the company in a better competitive position. We've got the ability to create better products through the analysis of customer and product data. We've got the ability to then also create better data products, right? These are products from aggregated data that the company selects. We've got outcomes of the variety that help you manage and mitigate risks. So this is the sea of all possible outcomes that could ever happen at a corporation with data. And most companies actually achieve a subset of that. Next slide, please. Next click, please. Okay. So actually, before I go there, a thought occurred to me. You know, so per McKinsey stats, the average company can increase margins by about 6% by focusing on these, by having data focused on these specific outcomes. Each revenue generating outcome can deliver between 1 and 2% increase in revenue and maybe a 0.5 point to 1 point increase in margin. Each cost-based initiative delivers about a 10 to 50% decrease in cost. And on average, it takes about 1 to 3 years to realize these results because it takes time for the cultural change to actually diffuse through the organization. So the impact of using data and analytics to affect all these outcomes that we've listed is not small by any means. And you're never going to achieve the big impact by focusing on one outcome. You've got to focus on multiple. More importantly, you've got to focus on revenue-based outcomes as opposed to cost-based outcomes, because the revenue-based outcomes are much, much more defensible by a company than our cost-based outcomes that can be easily replicated by other corporations. So with that, I'm going to bring your attention to this idea of the business outcomes value chain. So AlyData has developed this business outcomes value chain, and it really provides a formula for the generation of desired business outcomes. This value chain contains technical foundational components over here, off to the left. It provides business foundational components and operational foundation components. If I double click on the technical foundation components, you've got data, analytics, and the technology comprising of those tech foundational components. You've got people and process, which oftentimes when we're designing data and analytics initiatives, we will miss these components as forming part of the business foundation. Of course, we've got the operational components also. A key aspect to know and embrace over here is that in order to deliver success in each of these business outcomes that you're trying to achieve, it is vital that you have strength in all of these 6 capabilities, okay? Let me just go into each one very, very briefly. What does it mean to have strength in each of these capabilities? So to have strength in data specifically all the way to the left, we must be able to find the right sources that are at the right frequency, at the right latency, at the right history, the right breadth, and then be able to link them together, enrich that data, and bring quality to it. That's what it means to have strength in data. Of course, you know, the security and privacy aspects go hand in hand with all that. But, you know, that's a brief explanation of what it means to have strength in data. To have strength in analytics, we must be able to create the right type of analytical capability on top of that data to meet the desired business outcomes. So we may wish to understand what happened and create a descriptive analytics capability. We may wish to predict an outcome and create a predictive capability, or we may wish to know the actions to take so as to make those predictions happen via a prescriptive capability, you know, like artificial intelligence and machine learning. Over to the next column, which is technology. To have strength in technology, we need to have the ability to create the right technology foundation for the business outcome at hand. And that right technology foundation allows us to ingest and store the volume of data needed at the latencies and frequency it's coming in at, and it needs to be able to do so gracefully. This also means being able to store the types of data that may be required to achieve the business outcomes, things like images, voice, as well as character numerical data, which, you know, we're all doing today. We need processing capabilities on the output side that allow us to process volumes of data at the performance level expected for the business outcomes, and the concurrency of requests expected now as well as in the future. So now over to strength in people. So to have strength in people, you know, defining this at an aggregate level, we need to have the deliberate ability on the business side to be able to take the analytical output and convert it into insights. And then from there, be able to make an action plan, then to implement the action plan, and to also mount the cultural change necessary, which has been a constant theme of many of the discussions today, to rally the targeted teams behind that action plan. On the process side, next click, Jay. There we go. To have strength in process, we need the deliberate ability to take the technology foundation, take what insights and action plans are telling us, and then commensurately scale our business processes. So let me give an example here. This may mean we automate some of the business processes like manual account opening processes, and we automate them through some workflow software working cooperatively with the technology foundation. It may mean we adapt some of the business processes where we previously had reps in the call center handle a churning customer with little effect. We decide to create a specialist desk or a churn desk to prevent churn more effectively. We can make some processes more agile with easier access to clean data. And so that's what it means to have strength in process. Now, with regards to strength in operations, we need to ensure we can deploy new functionality continuously and rapidly, catch and correct data quality issues, privacy protection issues, and ensure predictable performance across all aspects of the technical stack. So a key concept here is that it is vital to recognize all these 6 capabilities are linked together to form a chain. The chain is only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. So our ability to create a business outcome is only as strong as the weakest capability. We can be best in class in 5 of 6 of these capabilities, right? We could be spending billions in 5 of these 6 of these capabilities. But if we're weak in, or you know, to zero, have a zero capability, or weak in just one of these capabilities, our business outcome will be weak or zero. Okay, that's a key concept to take away. And so, you know, what you take away from this is that there is a multiplicative relationship between these capabilities. And therefore, we must be strong in all 6 capabilities to achieve our business outcomes. Now, where the biggest gap, in my opinion, resides here is that we're generally pretty strong with data, with the technical foundation. Yes, we've got some issues on the data side, but we're working on those. But where I think we can use the most work right now is the gap between the technical foundation and the business foundation. That's where I think the #1 gap resides. And in my experience, an effective engagement model between the data team and business teams, around which I'm happy to answer any questions during the Q&A session, is vital. And so to provide details on the AlyData methodology to create a compelling data analytics strategy, I'll turn it back to Jay.
Thank you, Keyur. I am trying to get back. There you go. So as Keyur mentioned, the framework is extremely important, the strategy framework. But without a good execution plan and execution capabilities, the strategy may or may not succeed. So what we have done is we've developed a 4-step methodology to ensure that organizations can achieve the appropriate business outcomes using the strategy that they've defined or developed. So in this particular methodology, you start with the highest priority tactical and strategic business initiatives as step #1. Develop the business outcomes value chain as defined in the framework, followed by an execution roadmap and a program plan that addresses all of the core capabilities, the gaps that need to be addressed, as well as the priorities from the business. And then finally, you execute against that roadmap using agile processes and agile capabilities that most companies have in place these days. So given given that, let me now recap what we have discussed so far, and then we will turn it over for Q&A. So the four key contributions that we have discussed today with you are: first, that the data and analytics strategy must be co-created with the business partners, and the strategy should be reviewed on a regular basis to ensure that it is current and it is closely aligned with the desired business outcomes. The second key takeaway for you is that each of the 6 capabilities that have been defined in the business outcomes value chain must be strong to generate the desired business outcomes. And again, the strength or the maturity of each one of those capabilities can be measured using various techniques. There's the data management maturity model, there's the EDM council model, etc. So there's various ways to measure it, but the key concept here is that, as Keyur mentioned, because these are all links in a chain, your business outcomes are going to be dependent on and will be impacted by the weakest link in that chain. So you want to make sure that each of the links of that chain are strong. The third point and the third concept that we wanted to introduce is the introduction of a new role that we call a data economist. One of the challenges that most organizations face is the ability to not just identify the business outcomes and define the business outcomes, but actually quantify the return on investment, the tangible value that's going to be created based on the investment in data capabilities. And for that, you need some specialized skills, and you need a particular person on the team or multiple people on the team that can do that role effectively and sort of bridge the gaps so that the right metrics have been defined, the right metrics are being captured, and the business is actually able to see the tangible value that's been created by the data and analytics strategy and execution investments. And then finally, the fourth key point is that the strategy and the execution have to be developed and run through cross-functional engagement. It cannot be done in a vacuum within the data organization or the technology organization or the business. It has to be collaborative. It has to be cross-functional engagement so that the right focus is maintained and that you're accelerating data-driven culture and change within the organization to achieve the appropriate and desired business outcomes. So those are the 4 key points that we want you to walk away with, and hopefully the having shared the components of a good data strategy, a data strategy, a data and analytics strategy framework, and a methodology will help you and your organizations move towards becoming more data-driven and becoming more evidence-based. With that, I'm going to close, and we're going to turn it over to Peter and for any Q&A.
Super, Jay. Thank you so much. And Kian, it's great to have such a orderly presentation at this point. And I didn't mean that as a compliment. It was very easy to follow the flow of what you were trying to present and follow it all the way across. Given that, I had never heard of the concept of an economist. I've seen outsiders looking at our discipline here. So I'm kind of being selfish here a minute and asking you the first question. Has that, how do you sell that inside the organization as a physician?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Keyur address that.
Yeah, so this is something that I'm pretty passionate about, right? For many, many years, we've just been unable as data practitioners to be able to, really specify the value each of our data and analytics initiatives have on the business, right? And so next year, when we go and seek additional funding for the initiatives, we have to talk in very broad terms about the impact. And so over the years, and this is probably back, from my physics days, is I'm of the belief that you can really quantify anything, right? if you can quantify things, atoms that you can't even see, and you can quantify how signals come out of people's heads, we should be able to quantify deterministic systems like those that exist in a business. And so I started this process of quantifying, end-to-end systems to try and help figure out, well, under these conditions, would a system be able to actually output, these types of leverages? Like, are we going to be able to improve revenue by 5% under these conditions? And what occurred to me is that the more we're able to create these mathematical twins, if you will, of these deterministic systems, the more successful we were in our budget conversation, because people now were able to put their finger on, okay, this is what data can do, or this is what data has done for me. So it almost became a mandate for me personally to have that type of capability on the team. So that way we could have a much, much more fruitful conversation, come budget time, and also to inspire the entire team in terms of the impact we've had. And so in terms of justifying this type of a position, right, it became actually a non-event, right? You don't need a whole staff. 1 or 2 people like this will do the trick, right? And it's all about, people have generally understood that you do need somebody full-time to help you begin to understand how to create these mathematical twins of systems. It's not something that a financial analyst can do, because it requires you to really understand the finesse around how will latency of data actually affect your outcome. Will my personalization engine suffer? The answer is yes, but how much? A mathematician can help figure that out. So we're essentially doing McKinseyan or BCG type math to do this, but justifying it has been a non-issue once we show them the initial impact.
Fantastic. Here's a question. How, in that case, do organizations take to the fact that they don't have a data strategy the way you define it? I think I read that right.
So if I understand the question correctly, right, most organizations' data strategies are what I would call a technology strategy, okay? It helps define the types of technologies required without an understanding of the true outcomes required. They haven't really understood the outcomes or spent time understanding the outcomes and then doing the hard work of translating those outcomes into sort of that outcomes value chain that we talked about, the technical foundations. So in absence of that, most data strategies that I see are truly what data am I going to need and what the technical foundations need to be in order to create a scalable data capability at the company. Forget about what specific outcomes we're after. And the challenge with that type of a data strategy is that it becomes very difficult to obtain funding or large amounts of funding to be able to create that foundation if nobody really knows what specific outcomes we're after. And so I hope that answers the question, but if not, I'm happy to get into specifics.
And your contact details are, of course, in the slides and everything. But it sounds, if I can summarize that answer, which was, if you show me what I'm getting paid, or give me the thing of value, it won't be a problem. And I agree with you. It's critical on us to make that case. Dive in. We're running short on time. By the way, I was poking around. I think I found your polls. Does your company have a chief data officer, and has your company published a corporate data and analytics strategy? Are those yours?
Yes, Peter.
Okay.
Yep.
The one is open right now, and I'll the other one bit so everybody can run there and cast their votes. Corporate data and analytics strategy. We'll tally that up from everybody. All right, let me get back over here to the questions. How do you co-create data being easily available and cloud-based solutions?
Hi, can you repeat that again? You're breaking up. Hello?
Service of the technology. How do you co-create?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just put in a request that Peter send this to the chat.
Yeah, why don't you send it?
I'll try that.
I don't know if it's me or everybody's hearing the breakup.
On its way to the chat.
Stand by for question.
Okay. How do you create with the business? How do you co-create data strategy with the business? Data being easily available in cloud-based solution and self-service of the technology. Yeah, this is a great question. So, you know, so it all starts with understanding the solution itself. So, you know, step one is if we've got a clear picture of the outcome, what we have, at least the methods I've used, are agile methods whereby the business allots somebody, you know, on the business side who understands the business strategy, understands the boundaries within how that strategy ought to be executed, and has a healthy appreciation for data and analytics. So you need that type of a person on the business side. And then they come together in a cross-functional agile team where you've got a data lead who understands the type of data available at the company or could be made available at the company. They understand the nuances of that data in terms of latencies, frequencies, histories, breadth, and all that stuff. Because you know, if you want to create a personalization engine, if you get data every week, it's a very different client experience than if you get data every millisecond. So you've got a data person like that, and then you've got an analytics person in the room that understands the analytical capabilities available today, but also understands what's possible with analytics industry-wide. So typically what happens is those three people come up with a solution, right? That's their task. They come up with the solution, and in that room, I've found success in having a data economist there that can create a mathematical twin of what they've come up with to really figure out under what situations will the outcome be achieved, right? The whiteboard solution may be excellent, but you know, when you get down to it and you kind of do the fuzzy math, it may not generate the results that we were so excited about on the whiteboard. But once you've come up with that solution, it's very easy to then decompose that solution into the data requirements, not only what data will be required, but also what level of trust is acceptable or quality is acceptable in that data, what level of latency is acceptable, and these types of parameters around the data, as well as the analytics. So if you've got a very clear definition of that solution, as well as how the solution affects the outcome, everything else just falls into place. In fact, what I found is what also falls into place is all the philosophical conversations around, hey, what's the best storage technology out there for A, B, and C? Those conversations go in circles unless you really understand for what purpose are you actually having this conversation. So I find that if we index for trying to really have that cross-functional solution conversation, everything else in terms of, you know, what data is available, what cloud-based solutions, is self-service really going to matter here towards the outcome? All those things fall into place. So that hopefully answers the how do you co-create the data strategy with the business. If not, let me know.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we might have lost Peter, but we're coming at, we got about 1 more minute to go if you have any final statements.
Jay?
This is Jay, and really appreciate the MIT CDO team for hosting us and allowing us to present, and really appreciate the attendees for attending our session, and we would love to hear from you and address any questions offline. We have a booth as well, and we will certainly be available to discuss any questions, as well as provide any answers that you may need or any support you might need. So again, on behalf of Keyur and myself, we really appreciate your attending our session, and we look forward to engaging soon.